Hello class, I'm going to be talking about the philosophy of Karl Marx. I'm going to go through the background of Karl Marx, significant writings of Karl Marx, philosophical ideals, the Marxist culture, the lasting impact, and lastly, the works cited. Background of Karl Marx. Marx was born in 1818 in the German Rhineland. He pursued an academic career after completing his PhD. He completed his PhD through history. His father was a lawyer, and that kind of helped him being influenced to go through historical ideals through his father's study of law. But he fell through due to his radical thinking. He became too biased to become an academic teacher. This, through his radical thinking, this eventually led him to be exiled from Germany. He started too much trouble with his ideals of radical thinking, and eventually led him to write his socialist ideals, and which eventually led into communism. He began to be heavily influenced by George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. He started studying his writings, which helped him form his own. His focus on writings was the main goal of his life. That's what he did for a majority of his life after he was exiled from Germany. In 1848, he returned to Germany to take part in the revolution. This is the background continued. The revolution of 1848 failed, which led Marx to moving back to London. In London, England, Marx's philosophy began to be formed in his writings. He wrote many papers, and his philosophy began to flourish here. He spent years developing his writings. In turn, it greatly affected his family life. He would often go to his office and then start writing, and he would started to not spend much time with his family. He continued his writings until his death on March 4th, 1883. His significant writings was The Jewish Question, Protection from Human Beings Relating to the Threat to Our Liberty and Security. This was one of the main concepts stated inside The Jewish Question. He went through in detail about how humans were very protective of their ideals and just being secure. The German ideology. Humans are productive and must produce their means of subsistence to satisfy their needs. Humans are constantly working to try to gain capital or material objects that will help them with their daily lives or just something they desire. And then this was one of the common points that was made in the German ideology. His most significant work was the Communist Manifesto. It was known to be the birth of communist ideals. This is where we saw a lot of the socialist and anti-capitalism in this pamphlet that was a political tool to promote his ideals. These writings influenced Vladimir Lenin, where he started the communist regime in Russia. Vladimir Lenin was really influenced by Marx's ideals, and that's where we see the communist government being formed in Russia. His philosophical ideals. The Jewish Question obtains Marx's philosophy about how Jewish and Christian religions are barriers to human emancipation. Marx does not define what human emancipation is in his writings, but we can kind of get an idea that he felt that religion was blocking people from achieving like political goals, and it was getting in the way of political ideals. Ideals that real freedom is found through relations with other people. This was something that he wrote about in The Jewish Question, which he was saying that true freedom only lies with others. And then that government can like limit these freedoms through, and he touched upon this through capitalism, how the bourgeois or the middle class takes advantage of the people. The German ideology obtains Marx's philosophy about how material life or economic conditions determine someone's social status. This goes along the lines with capitalism. People are always trying to obtain materials to create status and also to create wealth, which in turns their place in society. The Communist Manifesto, Marx's philosophical ideals in this political pamphlet, addresses the issues of capitalism. He was really against capitalism and all of what capitalism was about. The communist ideal was a direct opposite, or a Marxist ideal, in other words, was like totally against and opposite of what capitalism was about. The key groups covered feudal socialism, the petty bourgeois socialism, German or true socialism. These three groups opposed the bourgeois or the middle class and modern industry. Marx felt that industry was taking advantage of the working class, that they wanted to pay workers as little monetary gains as possible, and they capitalized on this and sold the products at a significantly higher cost than what it cost to make. The Marxist culture, started by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, the socialist and communist literature of France, a literature that originated under the pressure of the bourgeois in power, and that was the expressions of the struggle against this power, was introduced into Germany at a time when the bourgeois in that country had just begun its contest with feudal absolutism. This statement comes from Marx's and Frederick Engels' The Communist Manifesto. This statement basically talks about how the bourgeois has taken advantage of the working class, and they had began a contest with feudal absolutism. So basically, the bourgeois was going to be the power and control the people and the workers in the factories. This is key because it shows that Marx's opposition to social classes and the opposition to capitalism, which is a key point in the Marxist culture. The Marxist culture heavily influenced Vladimir Lenin, which started the Communist Revolution in Russia. There has been a decline in recent years, but it still exists. Here's a couple images of propaganda. On the left is going to be Mao Zedong, the leader of North Korea, and it up at the top shows Lenin and Engels and also Marx, which were the key people in creating communism. And it also shows that Mao Zedong is studying Marxist ideals. On the right is Engels, Marx, and Lenin, which this is a Russian propaganda for the rise of communism in Russia. In conclusion, Marx's philosophy was ahead of his time. His writings were very influential to the communist leaders like Vladimir Lenin and Mao Zedong. The impact of his philosophy created conflict among capitalist nations and communist nations. Marx opened the eyes of many that capitalism is unfair, and the bourgeoisie takes advantage of workers. Marx will always be known as the father of communism. Thank you guys and have a great day.